Hi, welcome back to Wine and Culture, where we talk about the joys of wine in various cultures. I'm Trudy Hanna of Pie Imports. Join me today as we explore U.S. wines from the state of Washington. For this winery that we're going to feature, let me just read some of the reviews here. One says, hands down, on one of the best wine producers on Red Mountain. Here's another one, definitely worth visiting when you're in the area. They make some terrific red wines. So, are you ready to learn more about this great up and coming winery in Red Mountain? Tune in and please don't forget to subscribe. Frichette Winery is a family-owned, limited production winery crafting wines that showcase the best of the Red Mountain AVA. This husband and wife-run winery, they believe making wines Greg loves and wine experiences Shae dreams of. Their expression of flavorful and smooth red wines and be-in-the-moment vibes carry through in every sip of wine and in every second of delightfulness in Frichette Winery. They have a team of rock stars who are humorous, spectacularly knowledgeable, and eager to wow every guest. Their vision is simple, to be a destination winery known for stellar hospitality, beautiful views, and premium wines. Frichette's mission is to grow wine grapes and make great wine that would wow their guests' palates. While doing this, Frichette also strives to be good stewards of the land and contributors to their community. In celebration of Women's History Month, I am more than happy to introduce to you one of the brave and esteemed SHEroes out there in the wine industry. Beloved viewers, here is Shae Frichette, co-founder, co-winemaker of Frichette Winery. Hello, Shae. Happy Women's Day, or should I say Happy Women's History Month. How's everything going?
The whole month. Things are great. Things are great, Trudy. Thank you.
Good. Well, as I said before, thank you again for being a guest on our show. I'm really appreciative to have individuals who are in the wine industry, especially women. So let's begin. So Shae, if you would, your background is very interesting to me because we share two things in common. Would you mind sharing with us a little about yourself and how you got into the wine industry?
Oh, of course. So I'm from South Carolina, and my husband's from Washington State, but we met in California. And after dating and being married for a few years, my husband just said, you know what, let's have a baby and move closer to our parents. And I assumed that meant we were going to move closer to my parents in South Carolina, like, hey, coming back home. And he assumed we would be moving closer to his family in Washington State. So obviously we were not on the same page. And we just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And my husband, Greg, said, you know what, I'm sick of arguing. Let's just leave it to fate. Let's flip a quarter. If it lands on heads, we'll move to Washington. If it lands on tails, we truck it to South Carolina. I was like 2 glasses of wine in. So I was like, great, let's do it. So he flips the quarter and it lands on heads for Washington. And although I argued we should do best out of 5 or try again, you know, we did agree wherever that coin landed, that's where we were going to move and start our new life. So that's what brought us to Washington State. And I just thought we should do something that would give us goosebumps once we moved here. And we landed on wine. And so we quit our jobs and learned how to make wine. And the rest is history. I guess the rest is we're living history.
Oh, wow. I mean, that is so great. You know, and as I mentioned, there's 2 things that we share. I'm from South Carolina as well. So I know when we initially spoke about that, I was like, you know, I'm gonna honestly say, as much as I love South Carolina, you probably made the better choice.
Hey, you know what? We don't have the home cooking, easy access to soul food, and I totally miss the Southern hospitality. So, you know, those are things that I just really, really enjoyed about the town I grew up in, and I do miss that.
Oh, well, yeah, I definitely say the same thing as well, you know. But, you know, it's the and we're going to get into this during this session about the terroir and the land in Washington and how favorable it is to wines in the climate, of course. But yeah, I can definitely relate to you on that. There is this specialness about being from the South, especially South Carolina, and also too being a Winthrop Eagle.
Yes, from the woo. I don't know if people really called it the woo. I know when I was there, you know, like as a freshman, I think that we wanted to sound more cool, so we would just go the woo. I don't know if that even stuck.
You know what? It's like Winthrop. So just for viewers to know, Shae and I both attended Winthrop University, which is in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And, you know, Winthrop is one of those schools where, you know, everyone is very, how do you want to say, very earthy and very artistic and creative. And, you know, it feeds into you. So that's why when I read that about you, I was like, yeah, I mean, it fits. She has the Winthrop personality to totally do something off the grid. And that's exactly what we do. We do things off the grid. But yeah, I don't know if the rules still, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that probably just, yeah, I don't know. You know, kids, we want to be cool. So.
And different, you know,
yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So, so also too, one question I want to ask: what's your role at Frichette, the Frichette Winery?
So my husband and I are co-owners. We own the business together, and we make the wine here together. Outside of that, I run our tasting room. I run our business developments, getting our wine into a few retail spaces, and just kind of integrating into the community.
Okay, great, awesome. So Shae, which wines will you be discussing in this segment today?
Well, I thought that I would kind of share wine that's actually not released just yet, but it's one of my faves. It's the Sachet Rose. Mm-hmm. And the second wine is released in our tasting bar. It's one of our popular wines. It's the Punctual.
Okay, the Punctual. Oh yes, I did read about that one.
Yeah, the Punctual is beautiful. It's you know, for the name of it pretty much describes our journey. You know, we think that we got into the wine industry at the right time. We left California and moved to Washington at the right time to get our property, which was not for sale. We just kept knocking on the door, asking them to sell to us. And after 4 no's, they finally said yes. So we're just like, oh my gosh, the timing just worked out so well. So that's why that wine's called Punctual, because timing is everything.
Nice. Now, typically, since you've already talked about that, because typically I ask my guests which wine I want to start with. So since you're already on the roll with Punctual, let's go ahead and continue with that. So what type of grape did you use to make this wine, or what type of grape was harvested to make this wine?
So there are two grape varieties in this wine. It's mostly Cabernet Franc, which is a Bordeaux variety. In our state, we still use it a lot in blending. It's a beautiful fruity, blueberry flavor kind of variety. And so we highlight that in this Punctual. And then we finish it off with a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon. And Cabernet Sauvignon is the most widely planted red wine grape in the state of Washington and on Red Mountain, where I am. So it's very popular. Well, popular throughout the world, but also very popular in the state of Washington. So a lot of Cabernet Franc and a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh, nice. So what do you recommend that you pair with these wines?
Well, we make our wines just really balanced. So they're not, you know, like heavy tannin. They do have some beautiful forward kind of assertive tannin structure to it, but it's not like overwhelming and overdone, which I love that because it makes it easier to pair with a variety of dishes. I usually stick with the basics. So you think of red wine and red meat. So that's the way that I tend to think about wine. This one's on the heavier side because it is Red Mountain, which is known for insanely flavorful, medium plus the full body red wines. And so for this, and I do like foods that are a little bit more, my husband would say like exotic. Like I would love a skirt steak with the chimichurri with this wine, but it's also so smooth that if you want to just, you know, it's a beautiful Saturday, but you've worked hard all week and you just want to sit around in your PJs with some popcorn and leftover pizza and watch your favorite show on Netflix. It's that kind of wine too.
Oh, nice, nice. And so, in terms of the barrel, do you all use French oak or American oak?
So we use 100% French oak in our barrel program. We do
Hmm.
use, instead of like using brand new French oak barrels on all of our wines all the time, we have a program where we use 1/3 brand new French oak,
Hmm.
1/3 once used French oak, and then
Hmm.
1/3 what's considered neutral oak.
Hmm.
The reason why is, I mean, when we age the Cabernet, for example, the Cabernet Franc that's in this blend, we'll have Cab Franc. Some of it's in brand new French oak, and some of it maybe, let's call it, in neutral French oak. So we can taste it throughout the 24 months we're aging that wine, and we can taste that the Cabernet Franc and the brand new French oak is very oak assertive. So you get a lot of vanilla, a lot of like smoky characteristics, a lot of caramel. You get those very flavorful wood characteristics in the wine, which is beautiful.
Hmm.
But we're looking to create a wine that's a little more balanced and that really balances with the fruit. So we'll blend the brand new Cabernet Franc with the wine that's in the neutral French oak, just to kind of balance it out a little bit more. So 100% French oak, but we just kind of play around with brand new and neutral French oak.
Right. And just so let me clarify that to the listeners. It is very customary to use, I guess you would say, to use used barrels in winemaking. A lot of winemakers actually get a lot of their barrels from some distilleries. And that actually, with some of those used barrels, it actually contributes to a lot of the flavor in the wines. So that's not something that's unusual. Is very something that's very common. And here again, the one thing I try to emphasize on my show is not only that wine is about drinking, it's very much a science behind it. So that's where a lot of that science and that creativity comes in with balancing out the right flavors that the winemaker is trying to achieve. So thank you for clearing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And for neutral, I guess like for used oak barrels, we call them, you could say used oak. I actually, if I'm talking wine, sometimes I could just go back and forth between neutral oak and used oak. The fun thing is that, for a winery, when you're purchasing those barrels brand new, I mean, think about it, the wine's sitting in it for, let's say if you age your wines for 1 year, it's
Mhm.
sitting in there 1 year, and then you're putting another wine in, and by the third time, fourth time you're using it, then that's considered neutral. So you have those wines already in your portfolio. And sometimes wineries will purchase barrels from other wineries. They'll purchase
Mhm.
neutral oak barrels from other wineries to use. So it's a really cool process. And that's the thing about relationships in the wine industry. They're good to have because you're kind of, I guess, like purchasing from your competitors, if you will.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Right.
Right.
The really nice thing about that, especially among winemakers, is that although there is that you're purchasing from them or you're competitive or you may source in some of your grapes, everyone really respects each other.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone
Yep.
respects each other's wines, they respect what each other's doing. So it makes for a very nice industry to be
Mm-hmm.
in some regards. So
I agree.
so your other wine that you mentioned, your rosé, is called what's the name of it
That
again?
Sachet Rose.
Sashay Rosé. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So the Sachet Rose is kind of this is my baby. This is a wine that when we originally started Frichette, Sachet was not a part of the Frichette portfolio. But then I
Mhm.
went to this event called Celebration of Black Women in Wine. And this
Mhm.
event was held in Miami on this gorgeous yacht. And it's the first time I'd seen a Black female winemaker and the first time I'd met Black female wine brand owners. And so I was just incredibly inspired and empowered that when I came back to Washington State, I wanted to create a wine that was just more of an expression of me, something I thought was very fun. For Frichette, we don't make a rosé, and I really wanted to make a rosé and offer that. So I decided to create this label called Sachet. It's a play on my name, and plus I love when the
Uh-huh.
ladies in the South say, "Look at you sashaying around like you don't have a care in the
Exactly.
world." I just think it's a fun name. It's a fun wine.
Mhm.
I use Merlot wine grapes to
Yeah.
make this wine. So it's a rosé of Merlot. And I ferment it all the way dry. So it is a beautiful dry
Nice.
Beautiful dry rosé, a lot of fruit characteristics to it. It's really easy to, I mean, rosés are some of my favorite wines anyways. I just think that I drink rosé year round, but I do drink a little bit more rosé during the warmer seasons. I just think when you're sitting outside, to just have that bottle in a bucket of ice while you take in the sun, it's just can make for just an amazing day.
Yeah, and that's one thing I always, encourage viewers who are new to wine. I actually tell them one of the best wines to start with is a dry rosé, because to me it sets you up for what's to come next. Just to give some more diversity than what you typically get, especially being in the South where we tend to have more sweeter wines. So typically rosés in the South tend to be a little sweeter.
Yeah. Well, so my favorite when we talk about like sweetness for rosés, I enjoy dry rosés, but my probably equally I love off dry rosés, and so they just have like a little bit of sweetness to it, not overdone. But off dry is one of my faves as well. But rosés to me are very versatile wines. Yeah. I think that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing on like what to have rosé with, but I'll have rosé with like street tacos. I mean, like it's just so if you are a pork eater, you can have it with like pork chops. So yeah, and then like your like Thai foods and some of your foods that have like some acid to it and also some spice to it. Rosés are just beautiful, wines that you can have with a lot of different dishes, and I think sometimes it's overlooked. So
I agree
as well.
I agree. I definitely look forward to getting my hands on those, and we'll talk about that a little later in our segment. So, just so our viewers would know, can you describe the climate and the terroir and the topography in the Benton City region?
Yeah, the cool thing about Washington State is we have 19 AVAs. That means that there are at least 19 areas right now that have their own description of what their terroir is. It means that when you purchase a wine from Washington and it says Puget Sound AVA, Ancient Lakes AVA, Columbia Valley AVA, Columbia Gorge AVA, Walla Walla Valley AVA, Red Mountain, you are tasting that place. And that place can be easily described based on the terroir, the characteristics that influence those wine grapes that in turn influence what the wine's going to taste like. So where I am, my winery is in a town called Benton City, which is right outside of a bigger area called Tri-Cities. But the AVA we're in is called Red Mountain AVA. It's a pretty small AVA. I can ride a bicycle throughout the entire AVA, or I guess if you're a farmer, you don't really do bicycles, you have a quad or a tractor. So that can take me around the entire AVA. And sometimes we do that as a family, but just think about desert-like conditions. It gets very warm during our summers. Sometimes we can reach triple digits. Wow. But we have this amazing diurnal shift. And all that means is that although it's insanely warm during the day, we can swing 30 to 40 degrees at night. Now that's important for the wine grapes because for that heat and that sun, we get the ripeness in the fruits, but then we drop the temperatures, or when those temperatures drop, we get to maintain or create some beautiful acid in the wines. Right. It's very dry here. So think about desert, it's really dry. We get about 8 or less than 8 inches of rain a year. Now, wine grapes don't need a whole lot of water, but they need some. Yeah. We are very fortunate that we have the mighty Columbia River that we can pull water from. We actually pull our water from a river that flows into the Columbia called the Yakima River. So our farmers have to drip irrigate to maintain water to the vines here. We've got some amazing sandy soils, which it's really good. The vines, the roots can move through them really easily. Yeah. Diseases don't like that sort of soil. So we're very fortunate there. And we get crazy winds. I'm personally not a fan of the winds, but I love that we don't have to worry about some of the diseases that if we didn't have that air movement, we would be worried about. So just think of desert, think of very warm, think of very dry, a little bit of wind, a diurnal shift. And those characteristics, I guess the other thing I should mention is we have a southwest facing slope. And so all that does is give us a beautiful directional aspect to the sun that gives us maximum exposure. So those components really make for the perfect growing conditions for robust and flavorful small berries, so that we can get really nice, flavorful, assertive tannin wines that age really, really well. So if you ever see Red Mountain AVA on a bottle of wine, you'll probably see it mostly on reds. We don't grow a whole lot of white wine varieties here, but if you see Red Mountain AVA on a bottle of red wine, then expect that it's going to be pretty bold, intense fruit flavor, very, very intense fruit flavor, great tannin structure, and it's a wine that you can enjoy now or lay down for years to come.
Oh, really? So it does age. You can't age it really.
Yeah, Red Mountain wines are known for ageability. I guess I can just speaking about the state, because I know, because I'm here on Red Mountain, is the AVA I'm most familiar with, because I work almost exclusively with Red Mountain wine grapes. And so that would be the AVA that I'm most familiar with and I work with the most. But I love just Washington wines in general. So I do visit other wineries. I buy wine from other wineries. And because I like to taste a place as well. And I love stylistically how winemakers can put their own touch and influence wines. And so I am just, I'm in awe of the amazing wines coming out of the state. When I was living in California, in California, you have access to a lot of California wines and a lot of wine shops. They do carry wines, from around the globe. But they had a very, most wine places had a very small Washington state presence for wines. And so I personally didn't have a whole lot of access to Washington wines when I would go into stores in California. So it's very, it's just refreshing being in Washington state where this is what we have, and to be amongst small producers that sometimes you just don't get those wines in other places. So hashtag Wa Wine, amazing wines.
Well, and the interesting thing about that, although, the area is very small, Washington state wines are making a very bold presence in the wine industry. For those who are, who are really in and who are wine enthusiasts, we know about the Washington state wines. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize that, wine on the wine industry can be a little political. And just because you're not hearing about the Washington state the way you hear about French or Italian or California wines, don't necessarily mean that those aren't good wines. It's just that it becomes, like I said, a political thing, and who has the best marketing. That's the guess.
Yeah. Well, that's what I love about things like this, Trudy. I mean, for some of the, when you look at some of the Psalms who are doing some really cool things with video and with social media, they seem a little more eager to, dig in and find some of the small producers. I love following, I love just kind of getting onto social media and newsletters as well, because I get the opportunity to be introduced to smaller brands. And I love that. I love being able to discover something, because I like to share. So if I get to discover a new producer or a wine, or be the first to know about a wine that, a winery is releasing that I can get my hands on, then guess what? I get to share that with my friends and tell the story of how I discovered this new winery. So I love that there's more access to, learning about some of these other brands, including some of the Washington wine brands that I may not have heard about before.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So far we've discussed, the climate. We've discussed Frichette appellation. So we know you're under the AVA appellation. And we also discussed the various types of grapes that goes into your wines, are the two that you presented today. And as you stated, typically wines grown in, there's only one grape variety grown in the Red Mountain AVA, and that's
we actually grow a few varieties here. There's not a whole lot of white wine varieties grown, so you'll find Simeon and Sauvignon Blanc, and then my neighbors Kiona, they were the first to plant out here, and so they planted some additional white wine varieties. But, you know, mostly, you know, those are very small percentages though. But on Red Mountain, we do grow actually mostly Cabernet Sauvignon. There's Merlot grown here. I love the Syrahs coming out of this area. I actually make a Syrah under the set. That image behind me is the label for the Syrah that I make. There's a little bit of like Petit Verdot and Malbec. A little bit of, yeah, right.
I like Malbec, so I'm sorry. Right?
There's like pockets of other of some of the lesser known varieties that you would think of Washington for, like Barbera and Tempranillo. And so there's a lot of varieties grown here, but just not in because it is such a small AVA. I mean, when I'm saying small, like there's about 2,500 acres under vine.
Yeah,
that's really not a lot. So there's small pockets of things, you know, here and there growing, which is interesting. Is you know, for us, we source most of our wine grapes from other growers, like from other vineyards here, and to go to those vineyards and say, oh, you know what, it's like we buy Carmenere from my neighbor Kiona, and I would love to buy more Carmenere from them, but they don't have a whole lot. And then there are other winemakers that they have contracts with that love that Carmenere as well. And so I'm just like, gosh, you know, one of my colleagues from Liberty Lake, I'm like, can you give up the contract on that so I can buy this Carmenere? Like, come on, you know, give us sister a chance here. Step back for a year. So yeah.
But, you know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because in some regions that's what they do. Like some winemakers will grow a variety of grapes that year, and then another one will grow that year, and they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's interesting that you say that, but. Wow, that definitely would have to look more into those varieties that are there, those varietals, and get more experience just for myself. You know, nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So in regards to the wines, especially the ones that you shared with us today, what's the ideal temperature that you would recommend to serve those wines?
So I usually say room temperature for red wines, but I think when people think, so when I think room temperature, I probably think room temperature being a little more warm than typically most people. But I think a lot of people think room temperature and they're thinking like, you know, 69, 70 degrees, which, you know, I think could be a little warm for serving wine. So if you were to serve this wine anywhere between like 59 and 63, 65 degrees, I think that would be a good temperature to serve our punctual and any of our red wines. And then for the sachet, I think like about, you know, I would say because of this wine, if this were a lighter white wine, I would recommend something very different. I would look at a lower temperature for it. But I actually like this around like 53, 54 degrees. So my barrel room is 55 degrees. And I would take it out of the barrel room and enjoy it.
Nice.
Or just stick it in the fridge for, you know, for a little bit, you know, maybe, you know, 10 minutes or so, and just give it a little more chill to it and enjoy it that way.
Anything.
Exactly. I just think if it's too cold, it mutes the flavors of that rosé. So even if I have it in an ice bucket, I'll sit it in the ice bucket for a little bit, and then I actually take it out of the ice bucket, or I'll pour it in my glass and just kind of let it sit for a little bit if I think it's too cold.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. Good to know. Great. So, you know, Shae, I'm pretty sure some of our viewers are probably wondering, currently your wines are not yet sold in Georgia, but in other states. What are some of the other states that your wines are sold?
Wow, this is like a pop quiz.
I got your back.
We ship to 15 states on the East Coast. Well, Florida definitely is on the list because I launched Sachet in Florida at the Celebration of Black Women in Wine. So Florida, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., Wisconsin, Arizona, Idaho, Washington, Missouri. I don't want to forget about Missouri. California, of course. California is such an easy state to work with. Oregon is another state we ship to. Trying to think, there might be some other states in there that I'm missing.
Pennsylvania, New Mexico, Montana.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I cannot forget about my friends in Pennsylvania. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes. Pennsylvania. For a long time, we weren't shipping to Pennsylvania, and they just kind of changed some of their compliance and regulations. And so it made it a little bit easier for us to ship there. So I don't want to forget about Pennsylvania. So yeah.
Yes. And the reason why I wanted you to mention, or I wanted us to discuss that, because for our viewers, for a winemaker to be able to, or a winery to be able to ship to a particular state, they have to follow those states' requirements. So sometimes it's easier for them to find a distributor who can do a lot of that for them. So if you're in a state where her wines aren't sold, go to your retailer, tell your retailer would tell their distributor, and the distributor would come and find Shae and make sure those wines are there. So just food for thought for those who are watching.
Yeah, I think that, the consumer, the buyer, the fans have way more power than they may even imagine they have. They have the power to get brands in stores because their dollars speak, right? Their dollars speak, and that's what retailers are going to listen to. And so I think that the consumer and the fans have more power than they probably imagine. So of course, if a fan is going to their retailers and asking like, hey, we're fans of Frichette, why are the Frichette wines not here? Then at some point that retailer is going to reach out to their distributors and try and figure that out and come up with a solution to that. But for now, we are shipping to just those 15 states. We manage the compliance in-house. And so if there was a state that is, we hear like Georgia's one, Trudy, let me tell you, like folks in Georgia are just like, we want to get your wines here. Like, Georgia, I hear you loud and clear, and we're trying our best to make that work. Georgia don't want to play though. They got all those rules there. So
oh my gosh,
we're still looking into that.
Georgia is one of the hardest, and I can say this because I live there. Georgia is one of the hardest states. So by all means, whatever I can do to assist you, and I've told you that before, I am here to help because we definitely want to see your wines here.
Thank you.
So Shae, on that note, would you please explain to our viewers about membership or wine club membership and how important this program is to the winery?
Yeah, wine club is basically, there's no fee to join a wine club. At least most of the wine clubs I know of, there's no fee to join a wine club. There's no fee to join ours. But basically what you're saying is, hey, I want to be a part of your quarterly subscription of wines or your quarterly distribution of wines. And so for us, we have 2 wine clubs, our signature club, which is 2 bottles of wine every quarter. And by signing up for the wine club, it means that you save 15% off of those wines. So it's easy to sign up. You go to our site, except for if you're in Georgia and some of the other states we don't ship to, but you go to our website, you sign up for it, you put your credit card number in, and every quarter we send you a video and it says, hey, here are the 2 wines we're sending you. We're sending it with a few recipe cards. We charge you for those wines, which comes up to be about like maybe $80 for the 2 wines, somewhere in there. And then we ship those wines to you. And our club members also get, if you're local or if you come to visit us, you enjoy a club flight when you come into our tasting room, and you get discounts on our other events like our Motown jazz concerts and our dinner events. So that's our most popular club. It's our largest one. And then we have our case club, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's a case in the spring and 1 case in the fall, and we curate that case for you, and you save 20%. Plus flat rate shipping on that. So wine clubs are very important to wineries. Basically your wine club members are your biggest advocates and your biggest fans. They're the ones that say, I trust that you're making great wines for us, and we're going to sign up because we want to be on the list of receiving wines from you regularly. So it's extremely important for us. Actually, most of our wines are sold to our wine club members.
Oh, cool. That is nice. Nice. So everyone who's listening, go to the website, sign up, and be on the wine club. So Shae, just wrapping this up, got one other question for you. As a winemaker, what struggles have you faced with being in the industry? What challenges you had to overcome, and what lessons have you learned?
Well, I think, the big topic that is on the table that we're seeing a lot of visibility with right now, especially during Women's History Month, with Women's History Month, is just kind of some of the setbacks as a woman, as a Black woman we've had with maybe not giving some of the same opportunities or opportunities that we deserve. And so I definitely felt that coming on. I think that with, more courageous conversations happening and the topic being on the table, that it's held folks accountable to saying, hey, where are the women, or where are the Black women who have been here or who are new here that we should have at the table? And so it's really cool to see that there are, to me, more opportunities and more doors opening now, where it just seemed like those weren't, there weren't a lot of options before. So I'm happy to be in the industry at a time where I get to not only see this positive change, but also be a part of it. That's one of the things that's most exciting to me about being in the industry right now. And I keep seeing my husband like walking. He's like, I have got to be a part of this, of Trudy's show today. So if Shae won't let me be in front of this camera, then I'm going to walk behind her, which is a little bit blown up, but there's a beautiful vineyard that's right there behind
I see it. It's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. That really adds to the show. It gives a different scenery as well. And just let him know, when, I'm not in the States, but when I'm back, I will like to come and visit your winery, and we can do a show right there.
I think you should. I think we should make that happen, Trudy.
Absolutely. Look, you only have to say it once to me. So Shae, is there anything else you would like to say before we end our show today?
I'd like to say to anyone watching, enjoy wine and be open to it, because there's so much to learn and so much to enjoy. And having an open mind will increase your amazing experience with that wine. And so I know some folks say like, I don't drink this, I don't drink that. And I just think that, if you really think about terroir, it really is about tasting a place, even outside of the varietal. It really is about tasting a place. And so I would invite everyone watching and listening to just be a part of that experience and continue to be open to tasting a place.
Thank you for sharing that with everyone. That was so on point. Thank you so much. I couldn't say it better. Thank you. So Shae, it has been such a pleasure chatting with you today about your wines, yourself, and as well as your vineyard. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Trudy. I really appreciate you inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share my story. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, anytime. For those of you who are tuning in, if you are in Georgia, you can find retailers to purchase these wines if you ask for them. If you have any questions on how to get them placed in your market, comment down below. We'll definitely reply to your chats, or you can visit our website at www.pieimports.com. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you again so much, Shae. My homegirl. Go Eagles! Yay!
Go Eagles!
Hey, have a good one.
Thank you.